Hello, everybody, and welcome to the NextGen Planners podcast. My name is Dan, and I'm the head of community experience here at NextGen Planners. And today, I am delighted to be joined by the awesome Mr. Alex Stedman. How are you doing today, Alex?
Very well, thank you, Dan. Thank you so much for having me on here. It's an absolute
Good.
pleasure.
I don't know why you're so shocked when I said awesome there. You are awesome. So the first step to success believes is self-belief. So make sure that you don't do that when someone describes you as awesome, because you are. So for anyone who doesn't know Alex, he is a financial planner. And the reason we've got him on today's show is because he really does use social media, and in particular, TikTok very well, and he uses it to his advantage. So today we'll be looking a little bit at that and getting some nuggets information from Alex. But to start things off, and this is what we do at the start of every podcast, Alex, can you just tell us a little bit about what you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, sure. So I deal primarily with pension consolidations and helping people consolidate their old pensions into their current workplace pension. So I work for a company called Corinthian Benefits, and my day is spent mostly on Teams and Zoom meetings, doing it all remotely. So I usually have 2 fact finds and 2 presentation meetings a day. And in between that, I'm writing a lot of reports and checking them as well with my paraplanner. So it's usually a very varied day, and I love it.
Good stuff. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
I think that's actually one of the things that I hear the most from financial planners is how varied their days are. And I don't think there's not many financial planners that we've had on this podcast anyways who've said that 2 days are exactly the same. So if anyone is out there and they're not a financial planner yet and they're thinking, might be for me, then varied days are exactly what you get in financial planning. So it's Absolutely. Good to hear you say that as well. So we'll talk about exactly why we've got you on today, and also it's a really interesting area in financial planning at the moment. So a few years ago, I think everyone would agree that TikTok was, I laugh when I say it, because it wasn't something that certainly in financial planning that we ever thought would be useful for our content strategy, our marketing strategy, or anything like that. We never thought that we would venture into this world because we just didn't think that our audience was on there. And to an extent, I think a lot of people would agree that their audience still aren't on there. But there certainly is space for financial planners on there, and it's proven by what you've been doing as well. So just to start things off and just to kind of ease us into this, can you just tell us about the kind of things that you actually do on TikTok and where they came from?
Sure. TikTok, I should say that I originally got on there because I saw some really bad finance guidance going on. I saw some young guys telling people to put all of their money into one particular stock because it gives a 3% dividend. And there were some quite impressionable people on there. And so I originally got on there just to say, hey, look, you just got to correct this. That's not the right way to go about it, really. You should be thinking about it in X, Y, Z. And then that kind of morphed and changed. And what I actually do these days is one of 2 different types of content. So the main thing that I really want to get across with this is that content has got to be engaging. Doesn't matter how good and sound your financial advice is. When it comes to social media, the only thing that matters is whether people enjoy watching it or not. And so I will very often set up a scenario with 2 versions of myself, one person playing the ignorant financially literate, and the other person playing myself as the financial advisor. And so I'll set up a little story between what's going on of someone who says, they've got a pay rise to over £110,000. And then I come in as a financial advisor and say, hey, you've got a hidden 60% tax bracket there. And that kind of makes it more relatable rather than talking about it to the camera, putting it in the sense of a story and saying how you can solve that issue. Tends to take off and be viewed quite well by people. And so that's one set of videos that I do. The other set is literally talking at the camera about certain aspects of financial guidance, financial education. And that's usually in response to a comment that's made on a video. Someone says, can you tell me a little bit more about that, please? And so I do that to address them directly, but it also goes out to the wider audience. And that also gets picked up quite well.
Good stuff. It's and as well, we think this kind of stuff is daunting, And it is daunting. And I think people in the audience will be thinking, it sounds great, Alex, and it sounds like you're really smashing it and you're doing fantastically well, but they can't really ever see themselves doing that. So again, I didn't put this in the questions that I sent over to you, and I mean that's absolutely fine, because we like to go in whichever angle we want to, and you choose.
Yeah, totally.
But how did you get over that kind of barrier of thinking, it looks really good, but I just don't think that's for me. I don't think I can do this. How did you get over that kind of psychological barrier?
I'll say there's two answers to this. The first is that a while ago, I told myself that if I was afraid of something, then that's my cue to do it. Because I'm a big believer in you only grow every year through pushing through those little barriers of things that you're afraid of. And I've got a little mantra that every new year, people set New Year's goals, right? I've only got one New Year's resolution, and that is that I want to be embarrassed of the person I was last year. Because if you're not embarrassed, in my view, of the person you were last year, then you haven't done enough growth. So I want to have done that. So anytime there's a little bit of fear and trepidation that's holding me back, that's my cue to say, all right, this is something that I can do this year that's going to mean that I can grow as a person. So there's that one side of it. The other side is that, as I said, there was this content that was going on TikTok. I saw quite a lot that was just vulnerable people could have bought into it and made some quite bad decisions they might have regretted. And that's quite a strong driver to say, well, I've got some knowledge here to be able to educate. And so that also helped me get in front of the camera and do this. And actually, you know what, I'm going to say a third one as well. in that a lot of people overthink it and think, oh, what if someone says this to me, or what if someone says that, or it might get a negative reaction. The real reality is that you're not going to get a viral hit within like your first few videos. You're going to get a few comments, people are going to get a few likes, and the comments that you're going to get are either going to be inquisitive or good. So a lot of it just comes from overthinking, and don't let yourself talk yourself out of something.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the crucial points with this, and it's something that we hear all the time, is the consistency element of this. You're not going to post one video and grow an audience straight away. I mean, you might get lucky and just go viral on day one. I mean, that's the dream for a lot of people. It's possible, but it's not likely, and it takes a lot of patience. I think you would definitely agree, and I think it 100%. Takes maybe not hard work in terms of like this kind of stuff is pretty. It's pretty easy to get your phone out, record a video, and upload it to TikTok. I mean, you can do it in 5 minutes. So operationally, it's not difficult. Creatively, it is difficult, because you need to think of engaging things to say. You need to make them engaging, and you need to present them in an engaging manner. So it is going to take a lot of hard work on that side as well. And it can be kind of, I mean, everyone has days, don't they, where they think, oh my God, I put that video up yesterday and it's hardly got any engagement, no comments, no shares, no likes, or whatever like that. And it can really affect your confidence. And I think one of the crucial steps is just getting over that kind of lack of confidence and looking at that as if you're a failure or something like that. Like, everyone goes through that kind of stuff with their content.
Yeah, completely. You always have these peaks and these troughs which go through. And part of the secret of this is to actually try and separate the either success, or I'm going to use the word very, very generally, failure of a particular video, and just say, I'm in this for the creative process. I'm in this just to be able to be in a giving mood, rather than doing it for what's coming back in, as in coming the likes, the comments, all the stuff that makes you feel good, and receiving that. You've almost got to try and park that to one side and say, I'm going to do this because I just want to get stuff out there. And that kind of helps, but it does require a bit of mental maturity, I'd say, to try and get that kind of focus. Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. Mental maturity is exactly the way to summarize it. It completely is. And also a bit of pragmatism as well. I think, I think you mentioned before about, people think that they might annoy people, or they might get a bit of backlash to it. And if you're ultimately pragmatic about this, you think, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? These people aren't going to come to my house and I mean, they might do, but the majority of people aren't going to come to your house and smash your windows because you said something that they don't agree with. It might just be a bit of a rude, snarky comment or something like that. And if you're mentally mature enough, usually you can get over those kind of things. It don't get me wrong, it does hurt, but again, this mental maturity part comes into it, doesn't it? And sorry, mate, go on, carry on.
I was going to say, if you think about it in terms of, and you're right, absolutely. You know, at the time, if someone leaves a negative comment, I've had people shout at me, you know, in the comment section. Everybody, it's very easy to do that. I think it was Oscar Wilde that says, "Give a man a mask, and he'll show his true face." And the internet comment section is a perfect mask. So it might hurt at the time, and yeah, you know, it might get you down. But try and think of it as in, like, you know, in 2 weeks' time, I'll have posted another 14 videos and I'm not going to feel like that.
Yeah.
So always play the long game.
Absolutely, man. And you mentioned earlier about like the point of it for you was to, you know, firstly to kind of rebut those bits of terrible advice that you find on there, but also to get good knowledge out there as well. But there is kind of like a third thing with all of this, which is, in my opinion, it's one of the most important things, which is, you know, you want to grow an influence, you want to grow an audience, you want to use this to your advantage, you want this to be a tool. A lot of people do. They want it to be a tool in their marketing arsenal. You know, it can be a good way to get new leads, to get prospects, to get clients. So I guess I'm just interested in, for those people in the audience who are thinking that TikTok might be part of their marketing arsenal and a tool that they could use, what would be your top tips for them on using TikTok as financial planners for that purpose?
Yeah, so you mentioned that third point about getting those leads and that marketing. And I think my view is, if you are in that giving mood and you do this and you say, I'm doing this to get education out there, then you will naturally get people who are interested in you because you're providing value to them. And so they then see you as someone who can give them value. And so then they approach you for something a little bit more like, you know, like a lead, a meeting, etc. I'd say that if you're going to be starting doing TikTok, the first part is to don't be too afraid of doing it, but just commit to posting every day for something like 6 months. Maybe even, you know, you can do it for 3 months. Let's cut that down a little bit, but just make sure that you're posting consistently. And doing it every day is a really good way to do it. Most people have a lunchtime and you can take just 5 minutes. And as you said earlier, it doesn't take much. You don't have to have huge production value. You can take out your phone, you can talk to it, and you can create something that people will find useful. So I'd say commit to posting every day. Secondly, if you can talk about a topic that people are going to find engaging, and that's slightly different from saying that it's interesting. Engagement is about getting someone's interest within the first few seconds, and it's just being able to get a good hook in the first few seconds of your talk, then of your video, then that will increase the amount that the TikTok algorithm will actually push it out there, because people will be more inclined to watch it. I mentioned earlier, but I think I should just reinstate it again, that you could give fantastic financial advice, but if it's dry and not engaging, then you've got to think about it and exercise your creative side in how are you going to be able to talk confidently on this and be able to get people to engage with what you're saying. The third thing is something that's worked really well for me, is that as soon as you have posted a video, if you've got the opportunity, go live on TikTok. You can go live and people can post questions and talk to you there and then. And what will happen is that whenever anyone sees your video, there's a little circle around your profile photo and it says that you are live right now. And if you are talking about something financial that someone takes value in, they can then hop onto the live section and listen to you talk and post questions. And anytime that I have done this, I go live sometimes maybe once a week. Anytime I've done it usually for about an hour in the evenings, but I can do it during lunchtime. I've had at least one person every time. How can I get in contact with you, Alex? Because I'd like to set something up. And I say at least one. Very regularly, it's 2, and sometimes it's 3 people. So if you do that on a regular basis, you can get a lot of leads out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think as well, it's something to point here. They might not all be the type of people that you exactly want to work with.
No.
But, you know, any marketing tool that you use, you're going to have to sift through the people that you actually want to work with. Usually they are people that you want to work with. Obviously, sometimes they might not be. But like you said, it's just like any marketing tool, you have to be, you know, you have to focus on that kind of stuff and make sure that it's going to be actually useful for you. I think one thing you mentioned as well before kind of struck something in my mind, because there are going to be people in the audience who are asking the question about how the fact that we're a highly regulated profession, obviously. And this is something that puts people off social media in general, never mind TikTok. They think that they can't do anything on social media because either their compliance team won't like it, or because it might be construed as giving advice or recommendations and stuff like that. I think hopefully you'll agree with me on this. The lines are actually a lot clearer than people think they are. I think
I agree with that.
So some people think that they're a bit blurry, and that there's some stuff you can do and there's some stuff that you can't do, and then there's a bit in the middle. Usually there isn't. As long as you're not recommending any products, or as long as you're not mentioning products at all in your stuff online, that 9 times out of 10 it is usually fine. And as long as you've got a decent compliance team who understand that this is now the new way to go out there and get clients, 9 times out of 10 people are generally fine with it. Obviously, there are certain rules of this kind of stuff, and you've got to get that right. But I think, and hopefully you agree, like I said, you shouldn't let that put you off this kind of stuff.
No, 100%. Yeah, I think that people probably overthink this quite a lot. And I can completely understand that if you work for a company and the company's got a reputation, and they might just play the safe card and they say, no, they don't want to do it, which, I kind of get. However, I do completely agree with you in that the lines are kind of clear cut, and you don't need to, when I say you don't need to worry, I'd say as a financial advisor, actually where those lines are. As you said, if you're recommending a particular product that's got a cost to it, then that's out of, I'd say, you wouldn't do that. And I don't think that many advisors would do that anyway. And doing that on social media is something that I think most people would be sensible enough to avoid.
Yeah.
But you can talk about the benefits of life insurance without recommending a particular life insurance product. You can talk about how critical illness cover works without recommending a critical illness cover product. And the same goes for investments. You can actually probably talk about particular investments and funds. I'd probably say this might be a little bit of a gray area without actually recommending people to do it. But that's something that I've seen people do it, but it's something that I would actually steer clear of, simply because it could come across as you're highlighting it and saying how much it works. But you could go and you can talk about the investment strategy that's used rather than the performance, for example. There's definitely you don't have to worry too much about it. And I think most financial advisors, if you're thinking that you're going to be breaking the rules somehow, you're worried about compliance, etc., trust yourself and know that actually you already know where those lines are. And if you talk in general terms and go from it from an education point of view, if you go from it from telling people about how things work and trying to help them understand it, you'll be fine. The other point to this, I'd say, is that once you start getting a few followers, a few thousand followers, then you will be approached by companies for sponsorship opportunities. And that is something that from the start, I said, this is something I'm absolutely going to avoid. I'm going to say no to this. And I've had companies approach me and say, hey, you can make many hundreds of pounds that they will pay you in order just to talk about their product and promote it. But I don't want to do that. That's something that I would probably, if there's going to be one bit that I do say people when they get onto this kind of stuff, you've got to be prepared to be in that giving, educating mood. But the money that you make from it will come through the leads and the marketing that you make. Don't do it from direct sponsorships, because I think that will be the gray area and you probably will get a slap on the wrist somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is a definite piece of advice, is that kind of stuff is probably best to, if you can, and if you can resist that, it's probably best to avoid it. And
yeah.
Also, I mean, it's not good for your audience when you start to do that kind of stuff. I mean, it really doesn't come across well to your audience when it looks like you've sold out to a big company to advertise their products. It just, if you start things on an educational mood and then you finish up there, sometimes it doesn't go down too well. I think as well, just pulling on one of your other points that you mentioned before about the educational stuff, and about what to talk about, like. We mentioned about products and investments and things like that. Like, yeah, educational stuff for that kind of stuff is brilliant. And I think a lot of people do need it. But also, I think they perhaps don't have an emotional attachment to products. Like, no one has an emotional attachment to their pension. They have an emotional attachment to their money. They care about their money the most. So there's no need to talk about products and stuff like that if we're targeting people's emotions. What we should be targeting there is the money that they have. So how to use their money well, and how to make sure they don't make any money mistakes, and how to make sure that they're in a good position later in life. That's the kind of stuff that I've seen anyways, that really does work in the past.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned pensions, because of course that's the
Yeah.
area that I'm in, and people do have an emotional attachment. You're absolutely right, to their money. So if you can talk about it in terms of the benefits to them and the solutions that it will help them in terms of how it will make them feel. Oh, and by the way, this is also how the pension works. By the way, the reason why that is because the pension works this way. So I once did a video where I said, well, instead of talking about salary sacrifice and percentages, 5% per employee and 3% from the company, talk about it in terms of cost. So if you're on £35,000 a year, a cost of £1,000 to you actually turns out to be about £2,400 in your pension. That's a really good return on your investment. And people like that part of it. If I talked about it in terms of 5% salary sacrifice and 3% for employer, those are small numbers. They don't sound very good. But if you talk about it in terms of how much it costs someone and what their returns could be, then that engages them a little bit more. And it talks about, from there, then you can start talking about, well, if that was your return on your investment, then what does your retirement look like? And then you can start leading down that path.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's about leading with the kind of value. We say this quite often, but it's leading with the value rather than with the overt kind of sales or advertising opportunity. Don't talk about how great you are. Give people the value that shows them how great you are, and then they'll get in touch with you, and then that'll leave an influence with them, which is what you've done. So fantastic. But if we just move away from TikTok for a second and just think about the world of social media, that it's huge, it's enormous, and in my opinion, it's going to be huge for financial planners as well. But in your opinion, how big of an opportunity do you think that the world of social media presents to financial planners in the future and today, actually, as well?
So we've talked about this previously, and you know how I feel about this, but so you know that when I say that it's a colossal opportunity, that I do truly believe that. And I think it's a real untapped opportunity as well, because what we've got here is an ability to be able to talk to thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people at scale through a computer in our pocket. And it's once you understand the rules of the game. So like I said, you've got to create and craft for engagement rather than information. Then you can use that, and that becomes it becomes a huge opportunity. I could, if I were to go out on my own as a financial advisor, I would be utterly dedicated to marketing through social media, probably primarily through social media, I think, because what you've got now, a few years ago, it all started with, let's say we could all say that it all started with Facebook, really. Since then, we've got a number of other ones pop up, but now everyone has got a creative side. The idea that you're either numerical or creative, I don't believe in. I'm very numerical. I come from a very numerical background. And yet creatively, it's just a muscle that you've just got to exercise. And you can find now whatever creative outlet you need, it's there for you on social media. Do you prefer writing? Well, you've got Medium and Twitter and maybe a bit of Facebook. You don't like writing? Are you more of like a drawer? Do you like to do graphically? Oh, well, you've got Instagram for that. You like videos? Great. You've got long form on YouTube. You've got short form on TikTok. You've got all of the different ways to communicate with people with the way that you would like to be able to get the creative way out. And so social media is only going to grow, I believe, in terms of people engaging with it, because that's what social media wants. It wants people to be on there. And it's a great communication tool. So I don't think it's used enough by financial planners. I can understand why, like we talked about the regulation and the fear of being creative and putting yourself out there. But if you get over that, then it is a huge opportunity, because people are on it all the time, and people do need financial guidance. They do need financial advice. And it's a real opportunity to get in front of those people directly and show your worth to them in a very personal way at scale. It's immense.
Yeah, it is. I think I completely agree with you there. But when you said before about it, you would have it as your primary
Totally.
like marketing tool. I completely agree. I mean, I've talked about this on previous podcasts, that we've done like surveys of where people get the most of their clients from, and it's from existing referrals and from, you know, the friends of clients and things like that. Now, that's
Yeah.
great, but if you're starting a new financial planning firm and you don't have, or if you're starting as a new financial planner in a firm and you don't have any clients to get those existing clients from, where do you go? You know, we've tried
Yeah.
networking events, mixed kind of, yeah, you know, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, stuff like that. We've tried going to events, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. So social media is out there glaring us in the face,
Yes. Yeah.
ready to go.
And it's
So
primed and ready.
it's there. We can use it in 5 minutes. It's free of charge. We can use it in 5 minutes. You know, you can start to grow an audience pretty much overnight. It is for those people who are just starting off in financial planning. I think this is going to be enormous, and I
Yeah.
completely agree with everything that you've just said as well. So
Yeah. I think to just build on that, when you talk about when we're initially told to go and talk to friends, talk to family, the reason why those people are recommended, of course, it's people that you know, but there's the element of trust that is already there, and people want someone to trust with their money. And so that's why they're the natural first people to go to. Networking events, well, you're meeting new people and you've kind of got, you might be able to say, I'm a financial planner. They might know already about financial advice, you know, the fact that you've got to be qualified. So that might have an element of trust, but they still don't know you personally, which is why I think networking events are a little bit hit and miss, because at the end of the day, you've still got to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about and that you're trustworthy to someone. Social media can do that at scale. If you can demonstrate that you're knowledgeable by putting out a short 30-second video every day or a 30-second tweet, you can demonstrate that every day. You can demonstrate that you actually know what you're talking about. And as I said, if you're in the education and the giving mood, people know that you want to do best for them and that you are a provider, a giver, whatever word you want to put against it. And you can do it at scale. I keep mentioning that it's at scale. You can reach tens of thousands of people much easier than you would at a networking event, for example. So I think it's very underutilized. And I think people's perception of social media is coming from being on one side of the screen as a content consumer. So they see all the silly dances, they see all the funny gifs, and they think, well, how can, you know, why on earth would I want to use that? And the idea is that you don't use that. You get behind the camera and you find your different audience in a different way, and they are out there.
yeah. And your challenge before was a brilliant challenge, which was to give people in the audience, you know, post every day for 3 months. That's 90-ish days, depending on when in the year it is, of course. And that can sound ridiculously daunting. I mean, we're not talking about 3-minute long video. In fact, we'd probably advise against 3-minute long videos here.
Yep.
A minute and a half, probably 2 minutes is the maximum with this kind of stuff. I think one of the best things that I ever did with this kind of stuff is find someone to hold you accountable to it. So it might not be accountable in terms of we're going to take money off you if you don't do this. It can even just be as someone just checking in with you every week to say, how many times have you posted this week? If you haven't done it, why haven't you done it? And just having someone that you don't want to disappoint. It doesn't even need to be someone that you know. It can be someone completely extrinsic from your situation. You know, you could ask them to just check in with you every week and just say, have you posted 5 times this week?
Yeah.
And that kind of avoiding disappointment is something that humans really strive for. So that could be a good way as well. And I probably agree with your challenge to the people in the audience. You know, if you want to get better at this stuff, try that out. Try finding someone to hold you accountable to this kind of thing.
Yep. Find your spouse, get her or him to give you a prod and say, hey, you haven't posted today. Another thing I'd say is put it in your calendar. We've got reminders apps and calendar apps, and put it and just say the same time every day, just block out those 15 minutes and just say like, oh, you know, I don't really feel like it. I can guarantee your mind will change when you start doing it. And I said like, yeah, consistently every day for 9 months, you will find it easier than you think, because every time that you post a video, chances are you're going to get a comment, you're going to get a question. That will be tomorrow's video. And you don't have to think hard to do that, because you're answering someone's question. And that is so easy to do. And also, as I said, try to go live, you know, once or twice a week. You're going to get questions on that as well. There's another video that you can make. as well. So you don't be scared about the concept of having to think of 90 new things to do. Don't be afraid of recycling material as well, just in a slightly different format. I talk about pensions a lot. Okay. I talk about pensions a lot. I talk about investments a lot. I talk about the very same thing, but just in different variations. It's not too scary, but having someone to be able to poke and prod you is an excellent way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a challenge for anyone in the audience who wants to start taking this stuff seriously. Find someone to hold you accountable, to give you that prod. And we might start seeing, imagine if you and me, Alex, after this podcast is released, we start seeing people post loads of videos on Twitter and LinkedIn and everything.
I'd love it.
TikTok and stuff. Like, yes, this is amazing. So challenge
that would make me
set.
so happy.
For anyone
that would make me so happy.
Good stuff. So let's veer away from the world of social media and TikTok for a bit. So, and just talk about kind of the overall profession and just the general public in general. So last time we had a chat, which was a couple of weeks ago now, you mentioned how passionate you were about the fact that we're in society, we're taking like huge leaps forward in terms of technology and communication. I think you said it's like the fastest that we've ever gone, and it's the shortest period in terms of the highest amount of growth that we've ever seen in this kind of stuff. I'm almost scared. Like for instance, I saw some stuff yesterday online about like web 1.0, web 2.0, web 3.0. And I was looking into it and doing some research onto it. Wow, that is a complete different world. And that is just an example of it all. So, but how far do you think we've got to go? And also maybe tie it into financial planning. How far do you think that we can go with technology and communication in financial planning as well?
Oh, this is a great question, because part of it is that I'm actually quite excited for the future. I think that I think it can go really quickly. I know we're talking in very generalistic terms here because we can't talk. No one knows what the future is going to be like. And just to finish off the quote that you said, as in, it's never been this technological innovation has never been this fast, but it will never again be this slow. And it was a fund manager that actually told me that. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant, because if you look at computing power, it does seem to follow the tradition of doubling every 3 to 4 years. And where does that go? The more exciting part of it is not just the technology advances, but how it feeds in with where we are as a society, and the fact that as humans, we are primarily based on communication. We are, if I can go off on one just a little bit about what we talked about a few weeks ago, which was we are a hypersocial species. You put our nearest cousins, you put 10 chimpanzees in a room, you're going to get fighting and bloodshed. You put 10 humans in a room, you get relationships, you get business deals, you get great things come out of it. It's on a completely other end of the scale, and that's completely different from our closest social cousins. So we are a hypersocial species. And when you get technology that allows us to communicate so effortlessly and quickly and en masse with that kind of communication, you're going to see just an explosion in the usage. And that's exactly what we've seen probably in the last, I was going to say the last 10 years, but actually really in the last 5 years, you could really see, just looking back at how far we've come in terms of social media communication. If it keeps on going the way that it is, then it's like, how far do you want to go? Where does your brain want to take you? You just need to look at Meta and Mark Zuckerberg, love him or hate him. What he's trying to do is really bold. And I actually think that it can succeed. This metaverse that he's creating, where you can put yourself in as an avatar and then go and do things and go and talk to people. And that will be, I think, one of the next leaps that we will actually have. And if you're going to be talking, to try and relate this back to financial planning, imagine being able to be in a virtual world where you can network, where you can demonstrate your value, where you can talk to people, where you could conduct meetings, or anything else that you can imagine could be done in a virtual environment. And I think that is actually incredibly exciting. I do think that face-to-face advice always has a place, always. But I know that there are going to be some people, there's always going to be a separate niche that will say, I would prefer to do it this way. The pandemic has meant that Zoom meetings and Teams meetings have become far more normal than it was beforehand. The next step from there, when we talk about virtual meetings, then virtually in person as an avatar, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm very excited for where the internet is going to go and where it's going to take us, because of that ability with that communication time that works just so well for us as humans.
And also, I mean, it's great answer, by the way. There's so much passion in there that I can feel through the virtual screen here. But like, financial planning is a highly communicative profession. Like, clients and us have to have that great kind of communication between us, because that's what establishes trust as well. And if you think about all those leaps that we've had in communication, imagine what we can do in the world of financial planning with those advancements. I mean, we're already seeing a lot of it with things like customer portals and client portals and that kind of stuff, and a lot of new client engagement tools coming out, especially in the US, which is just amazing to see. Now that's next level financial planning. That is, centuries away from the financial advice of the 1980s, where it used to be, I'll put you in a product and then I'll call you in 3 years time to give you a resubscription or a renewal or whatever. We think about today. I mean, think about how cool financial planning is nowadays compared to what it used to be back then. Obviously, I think I agree with you. We've still got a long way to go. Technology is a massive buzzword, and it's almost on pretty much everyone's lips in financial planning at the moment. It's certainly one of the most talked about things in our community at the moment. So if we could just stick with technology, like, how do you see financial planning changing with technology, and what are you most excited to see in the technology space in financial planning?
So I see right now, I think that financial planning is actually behind the times when it comes to using technology or utilizing it. I still think it's got a bit of a catch up to do. And I think part of that might be some of the regulatory parts of it. You have to keep things siloed and things can't necessarily talk to each other in the way that you want it to. But I think that if it just catches up to what we've got right now, I think we'll be in a hugely more better position to be able to, let's say, talk to more clients. I spend quite a bit of my time right now just trying to get different pieces of technology that I use, just trying to talk to each other, which I can't because they have to be kept separate. It might be something as simple as trying to get my emails communications plugged into my CRM system so that it feeds in automatically. I have to do that very manually these days. I'm sure that there's an automated way out there, but it's not inherent in what we do. I've got to go out and find that kind of stuff, and that almost seems like it's a very normal thing that we should almost have just on our desks and working, and yet it's just not quite there yet. I think that we've got a long way to go. I think there's a huge potential for us to be able to have more communications pieces talking to each other, more technology talking to each other. So if it could just catch up with what we're doing right now, it would be a huge advantage. Yeah. And that says something, I think, for going forward into the future as well. I think we'll probably playing catch up for quite a while, I think, honestly.
Yeah. I agree as well. And I think it partially because we rely on some of the terrible technology that has been used by the larger organizations, shall we say, in our profession. We can't move forward until they move forward because they have such a kind of stranglehold on all of this kind of stuff. And that, you mentioned about regulation. I think that's been a huge factor in all of this kind of stuff as well. So yeah, I would agree with you on that. Let's start to, we've been talking now for nearly 40 minutes. Mad. Every time I'm like, wow, time flies.
Where's the time go?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. So stepping away from technology, if we just think about financial planning in general, we ask everyone this question, but what are you most excited to see in our profession in general in the next 10 years?
I'm excited. I am most looking forward to see what Gen Z brings to the table, both as clients and as advisors, because they are the first generation to have grown up with a mature internet communication attached to them. They see it as just an extension of themselves. It's a sixth sense. And so I'm really excited to see when they come to us as clients. I know that some of them are already taking an active interest already because they're getting more educated as well. They've got the internet and they're using the resources there A lot of them know how to use it correctly in order to get correct information out of it. All of the, when you say like misinformation and everything, that seems to always be the older generations who just don't know how to find what they need to find on the internet. The younger generation, they know how to find what they, what's the correct information is. So they'll come to us in a more educated sense. And I'm really excited to have those conversations, because it's great to talk to some people about this, because they will probably have a better idea of what they want and how to get there. And it'll be less of a one-way process, and it'll be more of it'll be far easier to get your client to where they are, because they will know, they'll have a better idea of it. And the flip side, I'm interested to see how those Gen Z people are going to be as advisors, because for the same reasons, they're going to be far more educated, they're going to have a better idea of money, but they'll be able to use exactly what we've been talking about on this podcast, which is technology to their advantage, to be able to get their messages out and in front of people. And yeah, I'm just tremendously excited to see what that generation brings to the table, because I think it'll be really exciting. I've got high hopes for them.
It'll be huge, man. I mean, if we just bring it back to the kind of TikTok thing, I mean, where like content, when did you start creating content? Like I probably started creating content maybe when I was like 24, 25 or something like that, which is a few years ago. I mean,
yeah, I'd probably say about the same. It was a few years ago. It's basically like it was during lockdown when I started doing a few YouTube videos. They were more effort than I thought they were going to be. They're quite, they're quite long and quite intensive to do. And then I properly started doing TikTok about a year and a half, nearly 2 years ago.
So if you think about it, we're doing this stuff, we're starting this stuff probably 10, 15 years later than the current generation are starting to create content. So they are already content creators at that age. Yeah. Imagine what they will be doing in 10 years time.
Yeah, completely.
It excites me to almost the point of terrified at how they're almost like going to be like little movie directors by the age of like 25 and stuff like that. Like they know the thing that we all don't know, which is how to catch someone's attention in seconds, because they've been brought up with this technology that trains them to do that.
Yep.
That's going to make, I mean, not only is that going to make content better, but it's going to make everything better, because they will know how to, get rid of all the bullshit and get rid of all the fluff and just go to the point straight away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just going to be, I mean, I don't know, obviously, if this is going to have the impact that I'm imagining here, but imagine if it did. It could be ridiculous.
I think, and all you have to do is just look up on the internet to see how many articles and videos have been made about how to make a good video, about how to make good content. And when I have come into it at, let's say, such a late age, in my late 30s, I've had to figure it out. I've had to look it up. I've had to learn it. This new generation, they don't have to look it up. They don't have to learn it. It's been built into them already, because they've been doing it from a relatively much younger age. And so they've had so much more practice. And engagement is all about talking about what is engaging and getting essentially it is getting someone's emotions and feelings involved. And, personal planning is, most of it is personal and a little bit of it is planning. And you've got to be able to talk to someone on that engaging emotional level to figure out what it is that they really want. And Gen Z are absolutely primed for that.
Yeah. That's the first time anyone's ever said that on our podcast, but it's definitely one of the best ones, because that is very exciting and certainly opened my mind as well, which is good. Another question that we like to ask everyone for is we like to ask all of our guests for a book or piece of content that has helped them in their career so far. So what would you recommend our audience consume to help them develop?
Oh, so, okay, I'm going to go a little off-piste with this, in that it's not a book, but it's a set of annual letters that's written by Terry Smith from Fundsmith to all of his investors. And he writes like a 15-page letter every year that talks about the attitude of his investments, the attitude of the fund. He makes sure about talking about the long-term approach to things, and he really uses very normal language. And so it's a great read, because it talks about how to communicate without fluff, without jargon, and how to get your point across in a very down-to-earth kind of way. So he's great at that. He does use acronyms as well, but he does explain them as well. He makes sure that you understand it. He also talks about keeping the long-term view and his attitude to investing and sticking with it through the good times and the bad. And it's a real masterclass in how to talk to your clients when it comes to investing and explaining what you're doing. I think they're absolutely brilliant. He's been doing it for about 12 years now. So there's 12 letters each that are about 15 pages long, a lot of stuff in there that people can learn from. And so that's exactly what I'd recommend to people, because I think it's a fantastic resource.
Brilliant. We've never had that one before, I don't think. So that's excellent. I'm gonna check it out. That sounds really, really good. Oh, fantastic. Good stuff. Well, I've held you for way too long already today, so I'm going to let you get back to creating some awesome content, of course, because whilst we're being on this podcast, you probably had like 10, 15 ideas for new content. So I'm not gonna quash that creative side any longer. That's all from us for today, but we do like to give the last word to our guests to say a big thank you for coming on the show. So tell our audience how to find you, how to connect with you, and leave us with anything else that you want to say as well.
Well, thank you so much for having me on here. It's been a blast, and I appreciate every one of you that's going to be listening to this as well. If you do want to find me, I'm found on a very niche platform called TikTok under That Personal Finance Guy. Check me out, and if you want to, you can leave me a comment, reach out to me through that as well. I've also got a link in bio where I've got an ability to be able to contact me through that.
Good stuff. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Alex. That was a really, really good episode. So that was Alex Stedman from at That Personal Finance Guy. I think I got that right. Yeah, he's given me a nod, so I have. That was on the NextGen Planners podcast. And if you enjoy this podcast, you can share it with your friends and family and colleagues. And you can listen to it on all the usual platforms of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and also on our website, nextgenplanners.co.uk, where you'll find out more information about all the awesome things that we do here at NextGen, including the fantastic community of financial service heroes, of which there are now 800 people in the community, and they're all changing the world of finance every single day. And by the time this podcast is released, our conference for next year should hopefully be announced. So you can head to the website and you'll be able to find out more information about the conference coming up next year. We are on all the social media channels. We, just like Alex, are on TikTok, and he does give us some advice on how to use it properly as well. So we've got a good mentor there. And of course, we're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well. So if you want to check us out on there. And of course, I always forget to ask this, but if you could just leave us a review and a rate to let us know how we're getting on, that is awesome. Give us any feedback that you've got about the show. Tell us what you like and tell us what you don't. But for now, thank you so much to everyone for joining. Thank you to Alex for joining us on today's show. Thank you guys for listening as always, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.